I'm not that far.
Now this was me, some of you may have seen it, this was me in 1975.
Oh, look at that picture.
Whenever I was in Montana, I was on wheat harvest, and it always seemed to me like every time I went somewhere and I was working, I says, hey, I'm going to have a nice easy summer. I'm going to be driving an air-conditioned combine and all that kind of stuff. So we get up there to Montana, and I go out in the morning, and the boss man says, you're not driving the combine today. I got one of the other guys in the combine. I said, wait a minute, what do you got me doing? He said, you got to rebuild the engine on these two trucks. So I had two grain trucks that I had to, pull the motors out of them and tear them apart and rebuild them. And that's what I was in the middle of doing right there, was building the engine on the trucks and all. And so that's my dad. My dad at his shop back in the early 70s. And that's about the only picture I've got of him in his shop, One that he didn't like his picture took, but you could tell he was, when I was taking his picture, he didn't really like me standing there with my camera taking his picture, and so I just took his picture. But anyway, he actually, that's where I got a lot of my training and aptitude and everything was from my dad. And he basically just, he had his own way of doing stuff. Matter of fact, I've still got that vise right there. If I decided I wanted it. But from the Great Plains, and that's where I was on the harvest out there, and we had these big long headers. You hadn't done anything until you've taken a combine with a 20-foot header and went through a 10-foot gate with it. Pretty slick. You used to have to do that all the time. But it's doable. And I cut. One time we went into a field of wheat, and it was about 1.5 acres, 2 acres wide, but it kind of went over a hill. It was in Nebraska. And whenever I started cutting it, I topped that hill out, and it went for a mile. And before I even got to the other end of it, I had to call him on a CB radio to get the call over again. And I had a boss man, and whenever you were back in a grain truck with a trailer to go into a particular place, my boss man, he was kind of a hothead. And when you're back in, somebody's looking at you in the mirror and they're trying to back a trailer, which is aggravating anyway, and you're trying to get them to go, you need to do this or that, right? He would try to act like he had a suicide knob on a steering wheel, and he'd go, you couldn't tell which way he wanted you to go. Well, if you didn't go the way he wanted you to go, in spite of the fact that he's doing this, he'd get mad and cuss at you, and scream and holler and yell. Anyway, so sometimes when the trucks broke down, I was the guy that they tapped to do the work on the trucks.
That's you?
Yep, that's me. That looks like I'm holding the truck up, but actually there's a bottle jack under it.
That's Hercules right there.
If the bottle jack gave way, it'd probably fall on me. But anyway.
My dad was working on a Camaro.
And that's why we was putting the engines back in, the engine I got through rebuilding the engine, we were putting them back in the truck.
And
I told somebody, I said, take a picture of me and my boss man and his brother while we're doing this, and he got behind the engine so that we couldn't see him.
Yeah.
And I put a breaker bar on the thing and I pulled it around so he was visible, and somebody goes poof. And that's what I was laughing about, because he was trying to hide, and we got a picture. All that kind of stuff. And not a big deal, but that was up in now when I was up in Montana, what was the worst thing? What was the worst thing that I ever saw in Montana? Was I basically saw mosquitoes.
On that thing, didn't you?
Well, they were numerous, and when we were putting the front, these international trucks, you had to put the front, pull the front slam off, and then put it back on. And it was about dark at one night. When we didn't put it back on, I didn't have a lot of hair on my arms then, like I do now. I don't know where it all came from, but the long and short of it is, when I was picking that truck up and it was about dark, I couldn't do anything to keep the mosquitoes off of me. And by the time I got over there and we set that thing on there, the mosquitoes looked about like the hair on my arm now. They were just a solid black mass of mosquitoes on there. Just make a bloody mess when I wiped them off. Worst mosquitoes I've ever seen in my life. And I've worked in Southeast Texas where you step it squishes, and it was, anyway. In Enterprise, I went to work at a shop over there when I came back off of harvest and everything. Well, actually, when I came back off harvest, I went to college for a little while, and I was working at a gas station part-time. Gas was about 40 cents a gallon back then. And this is, working in Enterprise on carburetors and all that kind of stuff. And what kind of car is that?
Looks like a Chevy.
Look like a Chevy. How do you know?
I know what a Chevy looks like.
I understand that, but how do you know? How can you tell that's a Chevy by looking at it? That's a Quadrajet carburetor. That's what I was trying to get somebody to say.
What did you just say?
What is that right there?
Quadrajet.
What is that? This picture was taken in 1977, by the way. That's a crankcase breather, right? All right, now, did a lot of wrenching in independent shops, fleet maintenance. Fleet maintenance is pretty darn cool. That's kind of what you're doing right now, is fleet maintenance. If you maintain the equipment and keep it checked out and keep it serviced, then you don't have a whole lot of regular repair work to do. Not usually. Occasionally you have to fix something. But the better you are at keeping this fleet maintained where it'll stay smooth, then it's basically you're just oiling the machinery. And that's a good job to have, and it's also valuable to the person you work for. I did that down in Texas. I went to school with Volkswagen in Jacksonville and Mazda in Jacksonville. Lincoln Mercury, I went to school there, with them. International Harvester. I went to school with International Harvester. For a little while I worked with International Harvester dealer. And Ford, Jeep, Chrysler, and that kind of thing. I've been to all those schools, and I don't know how many hours of factory training I've got, but I got quite a bit. Now, what got me was I'd been working on cars 6 years before I ever went to my first school. Now, the reason I was able to get a job so easy is because everybody knew my dad, and everybody knew my uncle. They feel like, well, if they're mechanics, then he must be a pretty good mechanic. So I was always able to get a job. I never had any trouble getting a job. If I wanted to get a job, anywhere I go, and you start building a set of tools, everybody knows you're able to do the work. So they put you to work. But I could rebuild all manual transmissions, and I did it. But if you ask me how manual transmission work, I couldn't tell you. I just knew I could take that thing apart, put it back together like a puzzle, and I could drive away on it. But if somebody says, well, exactly how does the power flow work? I didn't have a clue. I never saw a wiring schematic for 6 years. Really. But I went to school with General Motors in 1981, and down in Houston, 2-day class, because we had a Delco parts supplier when I was at Sabine. I went down there. It's the first factory school I ever went to. And then after that, I went to a whole bunch more. But when I went to the Volkswagen place in 1983, I saw my first wiring schematic, and I thought, man, if I know how something's wired up, now I can fix it. I ain't going to have to guess all the way through. I've been guessing all that time. Didn't know there was a good thing like a wiring schematic I could use. Worked in Dothan at the Ford place. Now, this wire harness here was one, this is my buddy Donnie. I took a picture of him. That wire harness was no longer available for that Aerostar, so he had to rip the dash out of it and cut the harness apart and fix it wire by wire. Of course, they were willing to pay him however much time it took. That looks kind of aggravating and complicated, but when he got it all back together, it was like brand new, All right. Now, this right here was me working over at the Ford place. And the reason there's video of me here was because they actually had news reporters that were doing this. And I was training these young boys even back then. And the long and the short of it is, one day this lady called me when I was at the Ford place over there, and she said, I'm working with the TV station, and I need somebody to talk to me about oxides of nitrogen. I said, okay. And I said, so what do you mean? She said, well, I've called all over Dothan, and I can't get anybody to talk to me about oxides of nitrogen for an article I'm doing for the news. And so I says, well, if you'll come over here and bring your camera crew, I'll talk to you about oxides of nitrogen. And so I did. I talked to her about oxides of nitrogen. And one of those videos was some video footage they shot. But you know what they do? When the news comes over there, they'll ask you to talk about it, and you talk about it for 4 or 5 minutes, and then they use 5 seconds of video. They left out of it.
Yeah.
I did a commercial one time for the Ford place over there. And I said, I actually wrote the lines for it. Every customer will know with every visit that every employee using tools of honesty, sincerity, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, so they had these big hot lights on me and everything, and I was standing by one of my diagnostic machines wearing my uniform, and I was doing this commercial. And by the time this thing was over with, 45 minutes later, I couldn't get those lines right. I felt like I was drunk or something, because you just wore out. And you're sweating, but you can't look like you're sweating. And you got to smile. And when I got through, they said, we need a big smile when you get through. And when I got through with that last time, I went, and just made a big dumb looking smile like this. I like it. That's the one we'll go with. I got that video in here. I'll show you later.
Oh, you got to. You got to. You got to.
Anyway, I made this little video, so it's part of a recruiting video here. I like making videos.
Oh, when you do that, it's not fair.
Why? You just saw it. won gold at the state competition and competed at the nationals and all that. And she came in here and she didn't know nothing about cars. She was a little blonde-haired, blue-eyed girl, and she just said, well, I wanted to be challenged. And she hadn't even taken steering and suspension or brakes yet. And I said, get those brake trainer stands over there and work on those so you're sick of them, and then work on them some more. And then I'm going to show you a few little things about alignment and all that kind of stuff. And she went up there and she just put a whooping on everybody up there because they had a vehicle jacked up with stands under it, had exactly the brakes she had practiced on, and she was only one of 40 people that could put those things back together when she took them apart. It was amazing. It just so happened everything fell in place, you know. But anyway, she could actually get her alignment angles right because she was kind of like Noah. You know how Noah, how horse sense he is and how, you know, logical he thinks. She had that kind of thought process about her. And that's the motor age stuff. You know, you guys know that I've been around for motor age a long time. This right here, there was one of the things that I noticed. Everybody knew in the community where I grew up that I worked on cars. And so whenever when people know you know how to fix cars, they want you to work on your cars for free because you love them, or because you love doing the work. And so one morning, this farmer that I've known all my life, he shows up on his little courier pickup in the yard, bangs on the door Sunday morning. You know, I'm still in bed. It's like 6 o'clock, and he says, I hadn't started my irrigation engine all winter, and it's sitting down by the pond. And I want you to, would you mind coming down there and help me get it started, because I've got the points in the plugs and all, because it was like a 454 Oldsmobile engine or something. And he says, and I said, all right, okay. So I put on some work clothes, and I got in his little truck with him, went way off down to his pond, and we chased the rattlesnakes and the doggone wasps away from the darn thing. And I put plugs and points in it and got it all set up. And it was sitting there, you know, the oil had gone off the cylinder wall, so when it spun over, so I hooked it up 24 volts. And boom, it fired up, and he's squirting water everywhere and all that. And so we got it running, made sure it was all right, and we went on back to the house, and he let me out of the truck. I'd been down there 2.5 or about 1.5, 2 hours, something like that. And he said, well, how much owe you? I said, well, I don't know, $20, I guess. And he didn't say it. I could tell he didn't like that. He did not like for me to charge him $20. I charged him $20, he gave me 20 bucks. So 2 or 3 days later, I stopped. He's beside the road with his little courier pickup. And I stopped and I said, Charles, you got trouble with your pickup? No, it's okay, I'll take care of it. No, son. But I said, you're not going to be able to fix this truck. So I found whatever was wrong, a little bad connected ignition switch or something, got it going, all that kind of stuff. He goes, how much owe you? I said, when I stop to help you beside the road, it's free. You bang on my door at 6 o'clock Sunday morning, you're going to pay me something.
Yeah.
You know, that's just what it is, you know. Now, I've had other people say, hey, they don't want to pay you nothing. They just want you to fix the car because you think that they're grand and glorious. All right. 2000 Malibu, top speed 45 miles an hour, low power, $2,000 spent at various shops to no avail, troubleshooting, no problem with engine or exhaust, final fix, drain 2 quarts of transmission fluid. That's all wrong with it. That particular transmission, if it's overfull of transmission fluid, chokes the car down where it won't hardly go. Usually if you overfill one with transmission fluid, it pukes it out in the vent and it goes all over the place. On that one, they don't do that. I don't know why. But I do know that when we drain the fluid out to where it was supposed to be, and on that one, it's basically, they got a little cap on top so that you pour it in there. But a lot of people feel like it's too much, it's better than not enough, so they just dump a bunch of fluid in there. And you get too much in there, it won't hardly go. My son Matt had a little car that had one of the transmissions in it. He called me. He goes, Dad, I took my car to have the oil changed right quick when I was on the way to work. And he says, after I got it back from him, it wouldn't hardly go. And so I told him, I said, jack it up in your shop at your house, or put your stands under it. And I said, with the engine running and the transmission warm, pull this little plug out, so a bunch of fluid runs out there. He put a pan under it, about 2 quarts of fluid ran out of it. Put it back together, perfect. Ran like a brand new car. And so he went back and said, why did y'all pour transmission fluid in here when all you're supposed to be doing is change your oil? Yeah, well, we felt like you might need some, you know. But they didn't know how to do it. So anyway, that's what the deal was on that. Think about that, $2,000. You'll never get that money back. Because everybody assumed it was a catalytic converter, or it was a mass airflow sensor, had low fuel pressure, or something like that. You know what I mean? I will tell you this, we checked all that stuff, didn't find anything, stumbled across his transmission fluid problem by accident. Because I was teaching transmissions. And I said, hey, they need to know how to check the transmission fluid in this car. That's when all that fluid come out of there. I said, I wonder if this thing's going to run better now. And it ran like a spotted eight. And then she paid a $5 basic charge. 90s Altima starts hard and cold. Shop gave up on the car but handed the customer a bill. Troubleshooting, no bad sensors or computer components. Final fix was they had a missing fuse. It needs to know when you're spinning it over, so it'll put extra injector pulses in there while you're spinning it over. And then when it fires up, it goes to firing them sequentially. it never knew you were spinning it over because that fuse had been pulled out and put in a different place. You're spinning the thing over, and it's just putting the little dab of fuel in it. It would if it was idling. That wasn't enough to start it because you need to wet the manifold to start one. It's like when you pat the gas on with a carburetor, right? Same deal. It's going to flush the fuel in there. But anyway, I thought about this for a couple of days while it was back there. I said, well, it ran just fine after it finally started, but it was really, really hard to start. And this guy said if you spray the carburetor spray in there, it'd fire up and it'd run just fine. But all we had to do, whenever I did the wiring schematic, I looked at the fuse there, when I found out there was no fuse there. It wasn't like it was blown. No power going to pin 20, I think it was. I plugged the fuse in there, fired right up, and good to go. See, a lot of the times, you'll see these other things where some of these shops will charge somebody, want to charge somebody $400 or $500 for seeing 4 spark plugs in a 4-cylinder. You know what I mean? I don't know what in the world is going on there. One the car, the Mercedes you worked on, they wanted $1,100 to put those mounts on there.
I didn't get paid anything.
I know, you can suck it up. All right, 2008 SUV. This was a Honda. Noisy brakes. Dealership refused warranty repairs, quoted $950 labor to repair the brakes. This was under warranty. But they said, you've been riding your brakes, you've messed them all up, we're going to rebuild all your brakes, we're going to charge you $950. Well, his daughter happened to be in this program at the time, and so she brought the vehicle over here. Rusty rotors. One of his daughters had been overseas for a while because she was in the Navy, and the vehicle was just sitting there until the rotors got rusty. And you know when you drive on with rusty rotors, that goes.
Oh, that's how my little Honda was on that one side. And I just ride with it and clean it out with the brakes.
Keep on going. And clean the rotors, foul brake pads, no parts needed. You know what I mean? I mean, the brakes weren't worn out. They had plenty of pads. The rotors didn't even need to be machined. One time when I was at the Mazda place over there, this woman had run through a puddle, apparently. Brand new Mazda near little at GLC. This was in 83, I guess. And she had stopped the car and parked it and left it there a while. And it had been there with that water trap between the rotor and the pad long enough to where it made a rusty patch, rather where that pad was.
And I locked that wheel up.
And what happened was whenever she would stop, it would go,
oh.
you know, because every time and she wanted that looked at. And so she brought it in there. When I pulled it apart, I said, well, ain't really a lot wrong. This rust distance should be gone. And so I put it in neutral. I got my air drill, and I put a big socket on it and put it on the you know, the CV joint nut. Spun it up, you know, 2,000 to 3,000 RPM, holding some 80 grit sandpaper up against it, cleaned it off and everything. You know, cleaned the pads off, put it back together, and it stopped just as good. The service manager came over there. You know, I was at the Mazda Volkswagen place at the time. He came on, what in the man are you doing? I said, well, I'm trying to fix this lady's car without putting brand new rotors on and everything. Well, you sure ain't making us no money. Anyway, she wound up paying $20. She was so happy. She came back to us every time she needed some work after that. Just because you go to the dealership doesn't mean you're going to get ripped off. At least not if I'm working on it. You know what I'm saying? I tried to make sure. This farmer one time came to the Ford place. He handed a blank check to the cashier with his signature on it. My truck's skipping and I want it fixed. Would you do that going to a dealership?
No.
Well, you know what happened? I put one spark plug wire on it. All it needed was one plug wire. And at a Ford place, you can get by just one spark plug wire. You know, it's kind of, they used to be like at the parts store, but they ain't like that no more. They don't sell you a whole set. I put one plug wire on it, and I think the bill was like 20, 25 bucks, something like that. But this guy trusts us that much, we don't want to betray that trust by having a big, huge bill. Hey, we can just do whatever, you know, all that kind of stuff. Always remember that. You want to be the one that everybody trusts, and they'll ask for you. I want her, I want him, I want this person to work on. I want the person that can stick with it with the hacksaw until the piece of boat wall thing falls off. All right. Nissan Sentra, broken door handle, parts less than $50. Labor quote from the dealer, $350.
Oh.
That's no joke. This is a true story. Customer bought the part, stood and installed it in 30 minutes. Had never done it before. Where did the $350 quote come from?
That's what, $600, $700 an hour for that? Good Lord.
Well, she was blonde, but what they didn't recognize was she wasn't a dumb blonde. She bought the part, and they said, well, we'll give you a discount on the labor if you'll let us put it in there. She said, I don't think so. So anyway, she brought it over here. All right, Dodge Stratus, bad oil leak. Tallahassee shop quotes rear main seal replacement at $1,000. Troubleshooting with dye revealed oil pressure leak at head gasket. Replaced the head gasket at a timing belt. Now that was a pretty good little bit of work, but the rear main seal wasn't what was leaking. Learn from that. Just because it's dripping off the bell housing don't mean the rear main seal is leaking. You need to find out where it's leaking at. And you remember, we had one, that old 76 GMC Sprint was leaking from the back, but it was coming from up high. Remember that? It was coming from up high. And somebody was telling me the other day, you know how these Chevys, you got that little cover that pops into the bottom of the bell housing? You know, it's got a little round cover that pops in the bottom of the bell housing, so you can pop that out and you can turn the torque converter to line your torque converter bolts up.
Not the older ones so much, but the newer ones.
Yeah, the newer ones I'm talking
Yeah.
about. And so this guy says, I got a whole bunch of oil inside of there. Well, where do you think that's coming from? If it's motor oil, if it's inside there and it's puddled up inside the housing, I mean, that's typically going to be the rear main seal, isn't it? You got that? All right. Now, F-35B Joint Strike Fighter takes this many lines of computer code to operate. 2010 passenger car takes that many lines of computer code.
Cool.
Imagine that. Think about it. Look at the difference. Because this one here doesn't have to satisfy mission requirements.
Oh, that's right.
I guess. This one here's got an interesting job to do, but it doesn't take near as much computer code to make it work. Besides that, this was networked to other fighters. You know what I mean? So they can just exchange information and all that kind of thing. Now, I saw this in a magazine article, not this exact image, but they did, these numbers were in an article that I read a while back. I got a copy of the article somewhere. I thought it was very interesting. I built this graphic myself, you know. All right, technical knowledge is what you got to have. Understanding, resources, integrity, and willingness to spend the necessary time and all that. And kudos to the two girls that worked and worked and worked and worked and worked till they got that piece of steel sawed off this morning. Y'all did really good, both of y'all, you and her both. But one of the things that I think she'd have probably done it anyway, but because you finished it, she was not going to walk away from it. You know what I mean? Because you'd already done it while she stood there and watched and all that. And it's a whole lot different when you got the hacksaw in your hand than it is when you can talk about how do you take care of that, you know. And a lot of times people talk really big. But technical knowledge is something that you're trying to gain here. And experience is the best teacher. So what I'm basically trying to do is I try to give y'all real work. Because every job that you get, if you're working in a place where they're handing you work orders and all that kind of stuff, you're going to get jobs you don't like. You're going to get jobs that take a long time. What was the last job they gave you didn't like?
Well, I just do oil changes and tire rotations, but I hate doing oil changes.
Yep. You do brakes some? Yep. I used to do an oil change whenever I found out that the oil was contaminated with gasoline. It was making the engine running rich. I just throw a pan under it, change oil myself. You know what I mean? I'm not one of those, you know, unionized thinkers that feels like, you know, I'm the guy that never does anything except stand here and keep clean clothes and change electronic parts, you know. I didn't mind getting up there and change oil because I kind of enjoyed that whenever it was going to fix my vehicle, right? All right, understanding is something I'm trying to build in here when I'm talking to y'all. Now, some of y'all, you know, play with your phones and ignore what I'm saying and all that kind of stuff because you think it's a waste of your time. Resources, you got to be able to have the data. You ever to work without a shop manual over there?
Oh, God, yes.
Don't you just
It's
love that?
aggravating.
Yeah. So, you know, you're having to actually work without, I mean, they just want you to wing it, don't they?
Yeah.
And do you wing it?
The best I can, if I have to, yeah.
Now, you're pretty good at that, aren't you?
Yeah.
That's what happens when you work for the city.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Integrity, that's the guy that you can trust to do what's right when nobody's going to know the difference. Right? You ever heard anybody say that hygiene is being clean when company's not expected? Right? That means that you're being clean when nobody's even going to be around. You're still going to be clean. That's basically with your work. Do you work really, really hard to put that last bolt back in, or do you say nobody's going to really know if I put this last bolt back in, so I'm going to throw it on the bench and not worry about it?
No, but I have put things back together and have to make bolts.
Yeah.
So.
Have you ever done that too? Handful of extra bolts when you put the dash back in.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know where these go, but
Yeah.
it ain't rattling, so I guess it'd be aight. You know what I'm saying? I mean, but
That don't down here, I had the same thing. When I was
well,
down
what you
there.
need to do probably is take you a bunch of little snack bags, and every time you're taking a bolt from a certain area on a Ford Probe. Whenever I was working on this Ford Probe, when I took the dash out of a Ford Probe to get in there behind the speedometer to do something with the speed sensor on one of those old early 90s Ford Probes, I had to take out 33 screws
Joy.
to get the dash out. I mean, I counted them one day. 33 screws had to come out to take the dash out there. And every one of them needed to go right back where they were. Now, I will tell you, one time I was putting the instrument cluster back in, and you might notice on some of these Ford vehicles, the instrument cluster's got these little thing sticking out, and they got a little rubber, looks like almost a vacuum cap on them, so that whenever it snaps in there, that rubber vacuum cap is, you know, it won't rattle, but it's, you know, and one of those things came off. And this soldier guy that was in the Army was sitting there, and he was leaning in the thing, watching me put the truck back together. And he said, and I was already just about done with it. And I said, what's that vacuum cap there, looking thing laying there? I said, oh, that came off the back of this instrument cluster thing. And I said, I'm gonna go ahead and put that in the cup holder. If you hear a squeak or a rattle, something, that'll be the reason for it. But I ain't tearing it back down and put that back in there. Well, he was going to Alaska anyway. You know, he was going to come back to another customer, but he didn't seem too very upset about it. But one day these guys stopped by and said, when I go to start my car, the clock resets. These guys on a trip, you know, them and their wives. And I said, they call me out in the ride-up area. They always call me out in the ride-up area. And I'd say, oh, well, you got a weak battery. What that is, you know, because when you go to start it, it goes below the threshold and keep the clock up. Oh, well, I'm glad I found it here. Let's go put my battery in there. I said, no, we don't do batteries here. You got to go on down the road. You know, I went ahead and put him a battery in there, but the guy that was with him thought it was really funny. Hey, he got you. More cars in the U.S. than licensed drivers, even after the cash clunkers purge. Remember the cash for clunkers purge? Yeah, several years ago, the government put some money into this thing. It says, if you'll trade in your gas guzzler vehicle, we'll get it off the road, and we'll give you, you know, $4,500 or $5,000 for any vehicle you trade in. You wouldn't believe how many 03 and 04 and 05 Expeditions and Suburbans and stuff people were trading in because they knew they could get. And what they were supposed to do is run the engine and lock it up so that it would never be able to be driven again and all that kind of stuff. That didn't go very far. They ran out of money real fast. They decided it was a bad idea. Cars deserve more than oil and gas. A lot of cars, a lot of work, a lot of jobs. I got 3 or 4 calls last week from shops needing help. You got it? There's work to be done out there, and there's places needing help. Jobs should be filled by knowledgeable people, people that can do the work, people that don't mind going to work every day, showing up on time, getting the work done, and working, you know, put in your time and don't say, you know, don't, you know, slough off and leave early and drag in late and not show up and all that kind of stuff. Performance, attitude, integrity, and dependability, that's how you get paid, and performance comes with experience. The speed will come. It's a good idea to do the job as fast as you can, but don't do it so fast that you leave stuff loose. And sometimes, you know, whenever it's really a bad idea to not, of course, what you're saying is, you know, you got the, over there, they like to just run it up with the impact wrench and all that kind of stuff. That's fine, but you know, when we went to pull that other wheel off Randy's car, one of those lug nuts did the same darn thing on the other side, you know, where the nut wouldn't come off.
That
and it
was the same car then, huh?
Same car, same darn car, and all that.
We knew accident.
And that was wacky as all get out. We had to work to get that out of there. And a lot of times, whenever you run those things up with the impact wrench, you start to destroy the threads a little bit, and then it's welded to itself. And I don't know why we see so many of those here, you know. And if I imagine somebody trying to fix that beside the road, you know, you can't get that. Good technicians are not wimps or crybabies. Got any wimps or crybabies in here? All right, 2 hands went up. Lousy employers typically have a big turnover. If somebody can't keep somebody at work for them, they usually redirect. Technicians can be paid well, right? And usually they are if they're good at their work. An automotive career can be attractive and rewarding. Putting down roots works better than bouncing around. The shops where I made the best money were the ones where I stayed the longest. And I didn't bounce around to very many shops. Capable techs are harder to find. Capable techs that will show up for work are very hard to find. Sometimes I got people saying, I got 4 guys working for me, one of them can fix anything I throw at him, but he only comes to work 2 days a week. You know, you don't want to be that person. You want to be a capable tech that will show up for work. Got to trust our cars, got to be able to trust our technicians. We need technicians with heavy metal. You need to concentrate on being one of those people.